Disclaimer: this content is only for mature audiences. Viewer discretion is advised. She smiled at him one last time, her hand brushing through her hair like she always did when she was trying to downplay something. "Relax," she said, picking up her keys from the counter. "I'm just going dancing." Her voice was soft, casual, but there was something behind her eyes. A flicker. A hesitation. And maybe that's why he paused longer than usual before answering. "Enjoy," he said finally, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "It's your last dance." That line hung in the air long after she shut the door behind her. It wasn't meant to be a threat, at least not out loud. But it wasn't exactly innocent either. They were a couple who had once been madly in love. The kind that stayed up all night talking about dreams, laughing over coffee at 2 a.m., whispering promises into each other's skin. But lately, something had shifted. The trust, once unshakable, now felt fragile like glass under pressure. And tonight, that pressure was about to break something wide open. Her name was Natalie. Beautiful, ambitious, and magnetic in every room she entered. She wasn't just going out for fun, she needed to feel alive again. Needed to remember who she was before the routine, before the cold silence between them started swallowing the warmth. His name was Marcus. Steady. Loyal. The kind of man who remembers your coffee order even if he's mad at you. But something had been gnawing at him lately. Whispers. Phone calls that ended too quickly. A perfume scent that didn't belong to him. Natalie had been different, and not just distant. She was hiding something. The nightclub she walked into wasn't exactly local. It was 2 towns away, a quiet name on the GPS neon lights pulsed like a heartbeat, and the bass echoed through her chest as if trying to sync with her own. She looked stunning: heels, red lips, hair that flowed like a second language. But this wasn't just a dance floor, it was a crossroad. Back at home, Marcus watched the clock tick. He wasn't paranoid. He was prepared. Earlier that week, he had found the texts. Messages from a name saved under Mia that didn't sound like any girlfriend he'd ever met. And there were photos. Smiles that weren't meant for him. Still, tonight wasn't about jealousy. It was about answers. Who was Natalie, really? Who had she become while he wasn't looking, or worse, while she thought he wasn't paying attention? As the night wore on, the story split like 2 paths running parallel, both leading to the same uncertain destination. One person dancing under a strobe-lit ceiling, the other sitting in the dim kitchen with too many thoughts and too little clarity. This isn't just a love story, it's a question of trust. Of secrets kept and hearts tested. Of how far someone will go to either hold on or finally let go. Was Natalie dancing toward freedom or running from guilt? And what did Marcus really mean when he said, "It's your last dance"? Let's pause here. Because what happens next isn't just about what's on the surface. It's about what they don't say to each other. The looks. The hesitation. The silence before a storm. You decide. Is Natalie innocent or hiding something? Should Marcus trust his instincts, or is he overthinking it all? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe in second chances? Or do you think once trust is broken, it's gone forever? Vote in the poll below and let me know, would you walk away or follow her? Because in the next part, one choice changes everything outside the club. The night was warm, but carried a breeze sharp enough to raise goosebumps. Natalie stood there for a moment, breathing it in. Her phone buzzed once in her clutch. She glanced at it, just a message from her friend Jenna, a half-hearted "be safe," queen crown heart, followed by a string of dancing emojis. Natalie smirked. It wasn't Jenna she was meeting. Not really. But it was easier to let people believe she was just out to blow off steam than explain the complicated truth. She walked through the velvet ropes like she belonged there, like her life wasn't falling apart quietly behind the scenes. Inside, the club was a haze of lights and sound. Bodies swayed, laughter mixed with the rhythm of bass lines, and the air was thick with perfume and unspoken stories. She found a spot at the bar, ordered a drink, and let her eyes scan the room. She wasn't looking for anyone in particular, yet somehow she was hoping for someone to find her. Back home, Marcus sat in the silence of their shared apartment, the TV flickering but muted. The text messages he had read days ago still replayed in his mind. The words weren't explicit, but they didn't have to be. They told enough of a story. Can't stop thinking about last Friday. You looked beautiful today. Same time this week? They weren't from a friend. They weren't from him. He wasn't the type to accuse without proof, and maybe that's what made this all worse. He had always been patient, trusting, maybe too trusting. Natalie had always been full of charm. She knew how to wrap her words in silk and make any excuse sound reasonable. But lately, the stories didn't line up. She worked late, but her clothes smelled like cigarette smoke. She said she needed space, but never really explained what from. He remembered the first time he saw her, 2 years ago, standing in line at a bookstore. Her laugh had made him turn. She was laughing at something on her phone, and even in that small, simple moment, she glowed. He introduced himself, awkward and sincere. She liked that. They fell fast and hard. And now he wondered when exactly they stopped falling and started drifting. At the club, Natalie wasn't dancing yet. She watched the people, her drink in hand, legs crossed like she wasn't in a hurry. From across the room, a man in a black jacket caught her eye. He didn't smile. He didn't wave. But his stare held, steady and unreadable. She didn't look away. Maybe this was the plan all along, maybe not. But her pulse quickened, and she felt something she hadn't in a while, danger mixed with desire. But it wasn't just about the man. It was about how easy it had become to detach, to wear a mask and pretend everything was okay. She loved Marcus, or at least, she thought she still did. But something inside her had changed. Maybe it was the routine. The way he stopped asking her how she was really doing. Or maybe it was something darker, something she hadn't admitted even to herself. Marcus stood now, grabbing his jacket from the back of the kitchen chair. He didn't know what he planned to do, follow her? Wait outside the club? Call her bluff? But sitting here felt worse. The silence was suffocating. He needed answers, not assumptions. He took the side road, the one that led out of the city. The GPS still had the last location she searched. It was something he had noticed when she left the map app open by mistake last week. Vibe Lounge, 14th Street. She had never mentioned it before. Another crack in the story. Back at the club, Natalie finally moved to the dance floor, letting the music carry her. Her dress shimmered under the lights, and her eyes closed for a second as if the rhythm could wash everything else away. For a moment, she was alone in her head, just her and the beat. But that feeling didn't last. The man in the black jacket stepped closer. He didn't say anything, just stood near enough to be noticed, far enough to not be obvious. She turned toward him, pretending not to notice. But she felt his presence like static. Was he someone from the past? Someone Marcus knew? Or worse, someone Natalie had hoped to forget? As Marcus's car pulled into the block, the club lights came into view. His fingers gripped the steering wheel tighter. He wasn't angry. He was something else, numb, alert, and on edge. He parked across the street and turned off the engine, watching the entrance like a man waiting for fate to show itself. Inside, Natalie finally opened her eyes and looked directly at the man beside her. He leaned in slightly, said something she didn't expect, and her smile faltered. Whatever he said, it wasn't just a pickup line. It meant something. She took a step back, but it was too late. Something had started, and now neither of them could walk away unchanged. What do you think the man whispered in her ear? Could Marcus be too late, or just in time? Tell me in the comments. The music inside the club throbbed like a heartbeat, slow and steady, building tension in the air that wasn't just about rhythm. Natalie stood still now, drink forgotten, eyes locked with the man in the black jacket. His name wasn't important yet, not to the crowd, not even to Natalie, but the look he gave her told her everything. He knew something she thought she had hidden deep enough. The way his mouth moved as he whispered something again, too low to hear over the bass, made her shiver, not out of fear exactly, but something more dangerous. Recognition. She didn't reply, just turned slightly, gave a half laugh to cover her nerves, and started to dance again, but slower this time. Her eyes kept drifting toward the exit. She hadn't expected him to show up tonight. And she sure as hell didn't expect to feel pulled in both directions, toward the man she had a past with, and the man she had a future with, if there was still one left. Across the street, Marcus watched the club doors. He hadn't seen her yet, but he knew she was in there. Every minute felt longer than the last. He didn't know whether he was hoping to catch her doing something, or praying she'd walk out alone, like she said she would. The doubt burned. Maybe it wasn't just about cheating. Maybe it was about losing the version of them they used to be. He reached for his phone but didn't dial. What would he even say? Come home? Or worse, who is he? Meanwhile, inside, someone else noticed Natalie. Jenna, her coworker, had shown up unexpectedly. She wasn't supposed to be here tonight, but a friend dragged her out after a bad breakup. She recognized Natalie instantly and started making her way through the crowd. She didn't know anything yet, but she would. And the last thing Natalie needed was another pair of eyes watching her tonight. The man in the jacket moved closer. Natalie didn't stop him. Part of her wanted to know why he was really here. They hadn't spoken in almost a year. The last time they did, it ended with too many tears and too many regrets. She never told Marcus about him. Not fully, just called him a friend from before. Now he was here in the flesh and acting like this wasn't a coincidence. He leaned in again, this time louder. You look surprised. You shouldn't be. His voice was smooth, almost rehearsed. Natalie finally met his eyes. You weren't supposed to find me again, she said softly. He smiled, but it wasn't kind. You were never really hiding. You just hoped no one would come looking. The words hit her harder than she expected. She took a step back. Her heart pounded, and it wasn't from the music. In that moment, she realized something. Whatever she was running from hadn't really been left behind. And maybe Marcus, with all his quiet patience and steady love, had no idea what kind of storm she'd been carrying into his life. Outside, Marcus stepped out of the car. He couldn't sit still anymore. He didn't plan on causing a scene, he just needed to see her. Maybe get a look at the man if there was one. He walked toward the club, tension in every step. Jenna reached Natalie first. Hey, you didn't say you were coming here tonight, she said cheerfully, then noticed the look on Natalie's face. Are you okay? Natalie blinked, caught between relief and panic. Yeah, she lied. Just surprised to see someone. Jenna looked at the man standing a few feet away. Friend of yours? Something like that, Natalie said, her voice tight. Before she could explain, her phone buzzed again. A message from Marcus. "I'm outside. Can we talk?" She didn't respond right away. Her breath caught in her throat. Two men. Two parts of her life colliding. One past, one present. And maybe neither of them really knew her at all. At the club entrance, Marcus stood just behind the rope, scanning the room through the tinted glass. He spotted her red dress, heels, glowing under the lights, and next to her, a man. Not just a stranger. A presence. Something in Marcus's gut twisted. Who was he? What was she doing? Before he could step inside, his phone buzzed, this time, from a number he didn't recognize. A single message. "She hasn't told you everything. She can't." And then, nothing. The story is only just beginning. Do you think Natalie's hiding something deeper than a secret fling? Is Marcus walking into something he's not ready to face? Comment your theories. Natalie could feel her throat closing up, like the air inside the club was getting heavier with every second. The music kept pulsing, bodies still moved around her, lights flashing across the room like nothing had changed, but everything had. The man in the black jacket wasn't just part of her past. He was part of a truth she had buried deep, hoping it would stay quiet. But now he was here, standing close enough to feel his breath, and the look in his eyes told her this wasn't just a casual visit. He wanted something. Maybe revenge. Maybe closure. Or maybe he just wanted to remind her of who she used to be before Marcus came into her life and made her believe she could start over. She turned slightly, trying to mask her panic with a sip from her now warm drink. Jenna leaned in and asked quietly, "Are you sure you're okay? I can stay." Natalie shook her head. "No, it's fine. You should go find your friends. I'll be out soon." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Jenna hesitated, but then nodded and slowly disappeared into the crowd, casting one last look over her shoulder. Outside, Marcus was still standing by the glass doors, phone clutched in his hand. That last message was burned into his mind. "She hasn't told you everything. She can't." He didn't know what it meant, but it confirmed what he feared. There was more to this than just another guy. And now that he saw her standing there, with that man beside her, everything inside him twisted with dread. He stepped back, unsure. Should he go now? Or wait? Confronting her in front of everyone might make things worse. But what if he waited too long? Inside, the man stepped closer again, forcing Natalie to move toward a darker corner of the dance floor. "We need to talk," he said flatly. "I don't owe you anything," she snapped back, keeping her voice low. "You shouldn't even be here." He gave a slight laugh, the kind that didn't sound amused at all. "That's the thing, Natalie. You think you can walk away and just rewrite everything like it never happened? Like I was just a chapter you didn't like." His voice was sharp now. "He doesn't know, does he?" Natalie didn't respond. Her heart pounded louder than the music. "What do you want?" she finally whispered. He leaned in, voice like a knife wrapped in silk. "I want the truth. Or I tell him myself." The words hit like cold water. She hadn't told Marcus about the incident. About the night everything spun out of control. About how she left town not just to start over, but to escape the fallout. She had hoped the past would stay there. That her new life, her love with Marcus, would be enough to keep the shadows away. But maybe lies don't stay buried forever. At that moment, Marcus stepped inside the club. The air changed. He didn't push through the crowd. He moved slowly, deliberately, scanning for her, his eyes locking on hers from across the room. Natalie froze. The man beside her turned too, watching Marcus approach like a storm just rolled in. The crowd around them blurred. It was like everything else faded except for the three of them. Natalie in the middle of two truths. Marcus, whose eyes now held more confusion than anger. And the man, who stood calm, almost entertained, like he had been waiting for this exact moment. Natalie took a deep breath, but it caught in her chest. She didn't know what to say. How do you explain the pieces of yourself you never wanted anyone to find? Marcus finally reached her. His voice wasn't raised, but it was strained. Who is he? The man smiled. That's a good question. Maybe you should ask her that. Natalie stepped in quickly. Marcus, please let me explain. He held up a hand. Explain what? That you came here to meet him? That you've been lying to me? His voice cracked just slightly. The man cut in again. She didn't just lie. She ran. And some of us don't forget so easily. Natalie turned to him, her voice shaking. That's enough. But it wasn't. The tension was thick, hearts pounding, words ready to be thrown like matches onto gasoline. None of them moved. They were suspended in the moment before everything would fall apart or crash together. You could feel it, the heat, the weight, the anticipation. The club's beat slowed as a new song came on. The kind of slow, haunting melody that made the tension feel even sharper. Nobody around them noticed the emotional war playing out in that corner. To everyone else, it was just another Saturday night. But for Natalie, Marcus, and the man from her past, this was the edge of something dangerous. The truth was seconds away from exploding. And once it did, nothing would be the same. So, what do you think is about to happen? Will Marcus walk away or demand the full truth? Is Natalie finally ready to tell him everything, or will she choose to protect the lie? And who really holds the power in this triangle? The silence between them was louder than the music. Natalie stood still, eyes darting between Marcus and the man from her past, feeling like everything inside her was unraveling at once. The weight of secrets pressed down on her chest, but before she could say anything, Marcus looked away. Not in defeat, but in realization. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small envelope. She recognized it immediately. It was the one she had hidden in the bottom of her dresser drawer. One she never thought he'd find. Her stomach dropped. Her mind raced. He must have found it days ago, maybe weeks. And now it made sense. The distance, the subtle questions, the growing silence between them. Marcus didn't open the envelope. He didn't need to. He simply held it up and said, "You kept this all this time." Why? Natalie's mouth went dry. The letter inside wasn't just a memory. It was proof. Proof of what happened before she left the city. Of what she was trying to forget. Of what she thought no one would ever know. The man beside her crossed his arms, watching it all unfold like he had been waiting for this. "You see," he said to Marcus, "she's not who you think she is." But Marcus didn't look at him. His eyes were locked on Natalie, waiting not for an explanation, but for a choice. And that scared her more than anything else. Because the truth wasn't black and white. It wasn't simple. It was messy and painful and tied to things she couldn't erase. She finally spoke, her voice low. "I didn't want you to see me that way." Marcus replied quietly, "What way?" "Broken," she said. "Someone who ran. Someone who let things happen and then tried to bury them." The man stepped in, his voice rising slightly. "You didn't just let things happen, Natalie. You started them." She turned sharply toward him. "You don't get to rewrite the story." But before either of them could say more, someone else appeared behind Marcus. A woman. Tall, confident, and out of place in the dark, neon-lit club. She walked straight toward them, her heels clicking like clock hands counting down. The man in black's posture stiffened the moment he saw her. Natalie's eyes widened. Marcus looked confused, sensing something shift but not knowing what. The woman stopped in front of them and stared coldly at the man. "Still making a mess, are we?" she said to him, then turned her gaze to Natalie. "I told you he couldn't let it go." Natalie looked like she'd seen a ghost. "What are you doing here?" The woman smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Cleaning up loose ends." Marcus looked between the three of them, tension rising fast. "Who is she?" The woman extended her hand to Marcus, polite but distant. "I'm Elise. I used to work with him. And with her. Let's just say we all have unfinished business." Natalie was shaking now. "You can't drag me back into this. I'm not part of it anymore." "Oh, but you are," Elise replied. "Especially now that he's here. And he's watching." Marcus felt the shift in tone. This wasn't just about an ex. This wasn't even just about lies. This was something deeper, dangerous. He stepped closer to Natalie, protectively, but also cautiously. "What are you not telling me?" The man in black, now clearly uncomfortable, took a step back. "This wasn't supposed to get complicated." Elise laughed softly. "It always gets complicated when you let your emotions bleed into the job." Natalie whispered, "Marcus, please don't ask me to explain right now." He didn't answer, just studied her face like he was seeing her for the first time. The layers, the cracks, the fear. He knew her, but suddenly, he didn't. And yet, part of him still wanted to. The music around them faded into something softer, eerie almost. The club lights dimmed briefly. In that second of low light, Elise leaned into Natalie and said something only she could hear. Natalie's entire body stiffened. Her eyes met Elise's, and everything changed. The camera could almost freeze there, Natalie caught in the middle of a past that refuses to die, Marcus unsure whether to fight for the truth or walk away, and two people who clearly know more than they're saying. Whatever was in that envelope, whatever Elise just said, it changed the stakes. The moment Elise whispered into Natalie's ear, time felt like it paused. Natalie's face went pale, her lips parting but no words coming out. Marcus saw it, something in her just broke. Elise leaned back with a satisfied smirk, like she had just flipped the final card in a long, secret game. The man in the black jacket, suddenly uneasy, took a sharp breath. "You didn't," he said to Elise, his voice brittle. "I did," Elise replied calmly. "She deserves to know." Natalie stepped back, her hand resting on her chest like she was trying to keep her heart from falling out. "That's not possible," she whispered. "That can't be true." Marcus looked at her, searching for answers in her eyes. "What did she say?" Natalie's voice trembled. "She said, that night she turned toward the man. You didn't just leave me behind. You used me. You let me take the fall." The man looked away, jaw tight. "I didn't have a choice. You don't understand what we were in." But Natalie's voice grew stronger. "No. I didn't understand because you never told me the truth. You let me think it was my fault. You let me run." Marcus was trying to keep up, his hands clenched at his sides. "What fall? What did he do?" Elise finally spoke again, stepping forward. They weren't just together. They were part of something bigger. An operation. Not criminal, but dangerous. Political. Confidential. She wasn't supposed to know what she was walking into that night. But he let her walk straight into the fire. Natalie turned to Marcus. "The envelope? That letter? It was my warning. Someone tried to save me at the last minute. But I never got it. Until now." The man in the black jacket looked pained, like the weight of his choices had finally landed. "I thought if I could come back and control the story, I could fix it. You mean hide it? Natalie shot back. Elise nodded. You always thought secrets were safer than truth. But truth has a way of breaking the surface. Marcus put a hand on Natalie's shoulder, gently. Why didn't you tell me any of this? Natalie turned to him, her eyes glassy. Because I didn't think I'd ever be safe to tell it, not even to you. I was scared it would all come back and I'd lose you. You almost did, Marcus said quietly. The music in the club shifted again, but now it felt distant, irrelevant. The four of them stood in the corner of a dance floor that now felt like a stage for something far bigger. Natalie looked at the man one last time. We're done. I'm not afraid of you anymore. You don't own my past, and you sure as hell don't control my future. Elise gave a small nod, almost like approval, then turned to leave. But before she disappeared into the crowd, she looked over her shoulder and said, You did good, Natalie. Better than I expected. Marcus looked ready to follow her, but Natalie stopped him. Let her go. She's not the enemy. He paused, then nodded slowly. The man in the jacket lingered a second longer, then finally turned and walked away, swallowed by the shadows of the club. Natalie and Marcus were left alone, the noise of the world creeping back in. Marcus looked at her, softer now. Do you want to go home? She nodded, but before they moved, she pulled the envelope from his coat. There's one more thing in here, she said, opening it with shaking fingers. Inside, tucked behind the letter, was a small photo, an old one. Faded, but clear enough. Marcus leaned in. Who is that? Natalie's voice caught. That's my sister. Marcus blinked. You never said you had a sister. I thought she was gone, Natalie said. But Elise just told me she's not. She's alive. And she's been trying to find me. Marcus stared at the picture again. That's the twist, isn't it? Natalie held the photo close, her voice filled with something new. Not fear, not regret, but purpose. No, that's the beginning. So now the question is for you, the viewers. What would you do if someone from your past came back with answers you didn't know you needed? Would you open the door or walk away forever? Marcus and Natalie sat quietly in the backseat of the car, the city lights passing like memories outside the window. The photo still rested in Natalie's hand, her fingers tracing the edges as if holding it too tightly might erase it. Neither of them spoke for a while. The tension had lifted, but something deeper remained, an awareness that everything had changed. When they reached Natalie's apartment, she invited Marcus in. This time, it wasn't out of habit. It was because she wanted him there. Not as someone trying to protect her, but as someone who had seen the worst and stayed. Inside, she laid the photo on the table and sat across from him. Elise said she's been living under a new name. That she's been working with people who protect those who get caught in what we got caught in. Marcus nodded. Do you want to find her? Natalie didn't hesitate. Yes, but not just for me. For both of us. Because I can't move forward without making peace with everything that came before. They spent the next few days unraveling the parts of the past that had been locked away for too long. Elise left a contact number. Natalie called it. And soon, she got a message with a location. A quiet coastal town 2 states over. Her sister had been there for nearly 3 years, waiting, watching, and hoping Natalie would one day find the truth. Marcus offered to go with her. She agreed. They packed light, left the noise of the city behind, and drove through long, winding roads that gave them time to breathe again. Time to heal. When they arrived, Natalie stood in front of the small house by the water, unsure of how to knock. But before she had to, the door opened. A woman stepped out. Same eyes. Same subtle smile. Tears welled instantly in both their eyes. No words were needed. The hug said everything. Later that night, as the waves brushed the shore outside the house, Natalie and Marcus sat on the porch. The stars above felt closer somehow. "I still can't believe it," Natalie said softly. Marcus smiled. "Believe it. You found her. You faced it all. And you didn't run this time." She turned to him, taking his hand. "I didn't have to, because you didn't run either." Their story didn't end with revenge or secrets. It ended with choice. The choice to let go of pain, to forgive, to rebuild, and maybe, just maybe, to love again. Now the story belongs to you, the viewers. What would you have done in Natalie's place? Would you forgive the people who hurt you to find peace? Would you choose to start over even after everything? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read every one of them. And tell us, do you want to see what happens next? A new chapter, perhaps? Let us know if you'd like a sequel.